Hey, my friends, welcome to another episode of the 10 Laws Podcast with East Forest. This week, I have a conversation with Machiel Klerk. He is he's very interested in dreams, is one way to look at it. But on his website, it says he's a social entrepreneur, a licensed mental health therapist, and a speaker, dream worker, and an author. And he did write a book that I checked out recently called Dream Guidance, which is really interesting. I think Rada looked at it, and she says she's going to be reading that as well. But he has a really interesting approach on working with dreams, and he was kind enough to do a little of that with myself, with a wild dream that I had that sort of came up in real time as we were talking, and it was strange that like the memory of that even came up in that moment. So I know you're going to enjoy this conversation. Big announcement on our end is that the U.S. ceremony tour, it's going to be 15 different markets from November 1st through 20th in the mountain states and the west coast of the United States. It is now on sale. Went on sale right now. Well, tomorrow, which is the 21st of September. But Wednesday, the 21st of September, those tickets are live, and these are relatively intimate events. I mean, they're large spaces, but they're lie-down concerts. So this is one of those where the stage is in the center and sort of like yoga mats type spaces radiate out from there, and you get to lie down and enjoy this ceremony concert experience. So space is limited. If you would like to come, or you know someone who you think should check out one of these events, send them over to eastforest.org/tour, and that's the place to get the tickets while they are still around. But I do appreciate the help getting the word out on this. We're a little short on time, a little compressed before November 1st is not that far away. And just really looking forward to it. This is a massive undertaking. It's the biggest, most widespread, definitely the ceremony concert tour I've ever done, and really kind of probably the longest tour I've done since the Trevor Hall tour. That's one continuous event. I mean, to be honest, it sort of feels like I haven't stopped touring in, 5 years or something. I feel like I'm always preparing for the next gig. But this one feels special. So really looking forward to that. So Ceremony Concert Tour, November 1st through 20th in the Western United States. Check out tickets at eastforest.org. And to those who's on the East Coast and elsewhere, I'm most definitely interested and looking forward to getting out there as well. If this is successful, I think that will help the team feel like they can put the resources behind us getting to the East Coast. So short answer is in due time. And I also want to say to our European friends out there that might be scratching their heads and say, I think you have ticketed events during the same time in Europe. The short answer is I did, and I apologize. We have to shift those European dates to 2023. We're still working on when we can shift those to. And we'll let you know. And you should be able to get a refund for sure from your point of purchase. So you should be getting information or an email or something from wherever you bought your tickets for those of you who bought tickets in Europe, and you'll get your money back. And it's just there's some financial constraints, to be sure, with inflation and the dollar changing and ticket demand and COVID. And as you know how these things go, we have to be fluid. It's heartbreaking for me to make these sorts of changes, but it's also, it's difficult. It's stressful to try to put these things together, and I'm doing my best. So I appreciate your consideration when we have to make pivots and changes. And more than anything, I appreciate everyone's support for supporting this project and this exploration that we're in together, essentially, of our consciousness, of our hearts, and seeing where that leads us through all these different modalities, from the podcast to retreats to the concerts in the real world. And most definitely, the concerts in the real world are some of the most amazing things we do together, but also, of course, some of the things that take the most work. Is there a ratio there? Maybe I'm starting to understand something. Anyway, more to come on that. I want to thank everyone on our council on Patreon for their support. We did have a new sign up here. Let's see, we got Heather. Thank you for signing up. I will be doing, as I do every month, one of my live Zooms where we gather and witness and do a live music meditation. You can sign up still and join us for that any month, but this month it will be at the end of the month, and I get to share all sorts of demos there. One of the things I shared there recently is the Headwaters album, which is on Calm right now, the Calm app. That's currently the only place you can hear it. It'll be released eventually on streaming platforms, but I released the music on the Patreon. The music, I released it early, so you can hear it there. So that's patreon.com/East Forest. It's a great way to support this podcast and support the project. We just got back from San Francisco and Portland. I went out to the Horizons it's not a festival, conference, the psychedelic conference in Portland, Oregon. It was beautiful weather. Of course, it's my hometown, so that was always nice. And Rod and I also had the occasion to eat our way through Portland. We went to some more new restaurants. That was really fun. Places I haven't been. Excellent. We went soaking one of the mornings, and I got to see my dog. Went down to my parents' place, and we did some filming for the documentary that I'm working on. We filmed down in Salem. We filmed at the Horizons Fest, and we also filmed down San Francisco with Robin Carhart Harris, who's been on the podcast. And in Portland, we filmed with Hanifa Naya Washington, who's also been on the podcast. So you can always go back in time and check out those episodes. But the Horizons Conference, just give you a quick overview. Skip this if you just want to get into the conversation with Machiel. It was good. I went to one of those, the first one in 2008 in New York, so a lot of time has passed. And if anything, I was just kind of struck by the differences, which are natural. But, back in the day when we went to that conference, there were no other conferences. You were sort of looking around the room, more just excited to see the others that are into these wacky spaces, and just kind of look some people in the eye and be like, "Oh, you've experienced that too," And that felt underground. Now it's quite above ground. And now there's a lot more like passing of business cards and these different startups. And look, hey, I'm one of them with Journey Space. We're trying to provide a particular service that I feel is missing in this landscape. But more than anything, we got to see a lot of friends that we haven't seen in a long time and catch up with people. And that was awesome. It's always great, basically personal relationships, right? That's what it's all about. But we're back, and I'm hitting the ground running, preparing for this tour and trying to finish my upcoming next record that I've been working on for a long time, my studio record. I'm very excited about it. I think it's the best thing I've ever done. But as it is, you just got to eventually sit in the chair and keep cracking away until that behemoth is done. All right, enough blithering and blathering. Let's get into this conversation with our new friend, Machiel Klerk. Machiel Klerk, how are you? Thank you so much for joining us. Where are you coming from today?
Well, I'm in a literal sense. I'm coming from Utah in Salt Lake City in Utah. In an other sense, when you asked the question, I thought, I've just woken up and I come out of a lucid dream.
No way.
A dream in which I knew that I was dreaming, and that's still reverberating a little bit.
Wonderful. Let me ask you about that. But first, I'm going to have you turn that gain down a little bit more on that microphone.
Yeah. Let me do this. I'm going to do also, I'm making sure that my air conditioning doesn't pop on, because it's 95 degrees outside, and that will otherwise come on soon.
Just turn the gain down a little more.
All right. This I'm going to talk a little bit so that you can say whether the gain is in the right direction.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Okay. Good. Well, actually, I have a place that I stay in southern Utah, and I just came from there. And so I pass through Salt Lake City a lot. I'm way down in the Grand Staircase National Monument area. I don't know if you know that area near
Yeah.
Escalante.
Gorgeous, gorgeous.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's been such an amazing summer down there. It's been raining, like lots of thunderstorms. In the past, I don't know, 4+ years, it's been bone dry. So it's been really wonderful to have like what feels like a real summer with the monsoons amidst, weirdly, the rest of the region in the Southwest being so dry. But it's been beautiful down there in
Yeah,
the
and
Escalante area.
they like a lot of places in the U.S. It really needed water. We had I think the wettest summer in a long time. But my gosh, what is it? Breathtakingly beautiful there. It's like
Yeah,
arriving at Mars and then or
yeah,
wherever, a different
yeah.
planet.
Machiel, if now I'm gonna need you to turn it up a little bit. You went a little too far. Just give it a little more gain.
All
Yeah,
right, you
that's
you
better.
just tell me where
It's
this.
great. It's great. It's great.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it down there. I find it to be deeply, deeply spiritual. Really, the most rich spiritual place I've ever been. That's why I keep going back for 15 years now. And I have a friend of mine down there, Matthew Cochran, who's been on the podcast, and he used to operate a dream group that we would be a part
Oh.
of, which is really fascinating inside that landscape in a way.
Right. I think that certain, and that must have been your experience, that certain landscapes really lend themselves well to dreaming. And southern Utah has that too.
Yeah. I mean, we have lots of things we could get into, but that in itself is an interesting question. So you wrote this book about dreams, and you've been diving into this subject for your entire life, I'm sure. But maybe we could start there. Like, how does place affect dreams? Because I know certainly down there, like we would share our dreams in this group and sometimes find there was shared commonality about something that happened in town,
Mm-hmm.
about like an animal dying that someone was really upset about. And then someone else was like, oh my God, I had a dream about that animal, 2 nights ago. Or I was
Yeah.
in overseas once on a show, and I had like the craziest dream. And I always wondered, like, is it just random, or is it about this? I was in Germany. Does it have anything to do with the place I was in?
Yeah. In almost any tradition that I visited or explored, the notion was that if you want to have a really important dream, or you wanted to ask your dream a question, that you would travel. You would travel to a sacred space, whether it was a cave, the grave of a saint, or some place in nature that then would be very conducive to dreaming. So all around the world, this notion that there are places that are more conducive to dreaming than others is almost as old as humanity. And I don't know for sure, of course, but it feels like certain places have more. You're more in touch with nature, and by being more in touch with nature, you're also more in touch with your inner nature. And in these specific places, you start noticing that nature is alive, and that nature communicates with us, whether it's the animal in the town, or maybe the tree, or the spirit of the place. And yeah, so this it's an old experience of people to travel to sacred spaces to dream.
Amazing. Do you think that like dreams are a primary way of the natural world to communicate with us, almost like a backup way? It's sort of like, hey, we're trying to be in communication in waking life, but you're not hearing us, particularly in modern life. And it's so they like go into the dream world. And do you think that that's a place of freedom for the unseen, or is it frustrating because they have to work within this sort of subconscious gobbledygook to communicate?
Yes, I think that we are deeply connected to nature, and whatever theory people have, but it's almost always we're part of a field, or metaphorically, we're a wave on the ocean, and the wave is of the same substance as the ocean, and so it's connected, and we're all. And in Carl Jung's idea, this is the collective unconscious. You have your own unconscious, the collective unconscious. And so we're connected with nature, and nature also tries to engage with us during the day. Daydreams, intuitions, feelings. It's all engaging with us. And when we sleep, our habitual ego is less dense, and so this other world of imagination, or the other world of nature, can much easier flow in, and there we remain in touch with the deeper layers of our own being and the deeper layers in nature.
Yeah. Yeah, and we're going to get into sort of what you lay out in the book of like your method of working with your dreams more intentionally and consciously. But I want to dig into that idea about the unconscious a little bit. I know you have a
Yeah,
deep background in Jungian ideology. I mean, I have to just step back and zoom out for a little bit with
yeah.
dreams because I'll be honest, I find them confusing because it seems that I've had dreams on one hand that are extremely profound and deeply healing.
Hmm.
And then on the other hand, most of my dreams feel like, or at least maybe I'm putting this meaning on them, don't have much meaning. They're almost like noise or something's very biologically being just worked out. It needs, I don't know, it's like defragging a hard drive in my head.
Hmm.
How the hell do you tell the difference and decipher inside your dreams what matters and what's not something you actually should be giving too much credence?
The the Native Americans had a term for had an identification for dreams in the way they said you have big dreams and you have small dreams, and so these big dreams are like what you say. It can be prophetic, or they can indicate the death of a loved one, or an animal in town, or a direction to take in, or they can heal. All kinds of miracles can happen in that space, and they happen way fewer than the regular dreams. Yet many regular dreams are indeed and working through the emotional state in the day, and therefore they display somewhat of an psychological X-ray on where you are. And in that way, also the day-to-day dreams can become interesting, because there you can see, oh, this is the state I'm in, and here are some of my blind spots, because this X-ray will show things that you're not completely aware of, but are driving your behavior. So a lot of dreams have to do with that, but they will show you where you are, but they will also give an picture, an indication of where your psyche or your soul tries to flow into or towards. It is there's a direction in dreaming. It's almost like the river. It's going somewhere, and if you can align with the flow of your dream life, with your own soul, you'll get you're on your own path, and that makes life a big adventure.
Well, I guess my question then is sort of like you're saying, how are you in alignment, with it? That's the $1 million question for a lot of people who listen to
Yeah,
this podcast is how are we in alignment with our soul? Like we
yeah.
want to be. And I'm guessing your answer is partially sort of your methodology for working with dreams. I don't know if you want to get into that, but I'm really trying to understand, and please push back if you're like, hey, it's not that simple. This is the world of the mystery, the unseen. How we can more reliably understand and be in communication with everything that can come through dreams, which is a lot of, like you said, it's a lot of different things. It could be, some might believe other beings,
Mm-hmm.
our own self,
Mm-hmm.
nature itself, or just the unconscious and the brain working through this or that.
Yes. Well, I think to take a step back from that, the dreaming consciousness is a field of consciousness, or a world that we enter into at night. And if you look at a dream, you're really in a world. You're somewhere doing something, and you're living in a world. And there's a really simple observation of what a dream is, but it's also with the really simple things, it's really profound. because that is the starting point on understanding, oh, I'm in another world. And in this other world, there are figures, states of consciousness that are deeply creative or very intelligent. And they are trying to, they're interacting with me. And the other very important part of it is the moment that we open our eyes in the morning, this state of consciousness doesn't disappear. It becomes unseen, but the state of consciousness is still there. The other world is still coexisting with its characters that live in it. Um, and uh, and and uh, and so a dream is not just a little movie you watch at night, but it's a world you enter at night, and that world continues to coexist when you wake up, and it continues to communicate with us. So it gives daydreams, and daydreams are just the same state of consciousness coming up in day to day life. And we will daydream about the things that our soul desires. And of course, we have to check that, because it can daydream about a lot of things, but it will always give kernels of what our soul wants. And sometimes it searches that on the wrong level, but by understanding the daydream, we get in direction. And you will not, the gardener will daydream about tending to the roses and the plants. And someone who doesn't have a gardening spirit, but a soccer spirit, will dream about playing soccer. So daydreams will give you a clue of where your soul wants to go. And the same characters will show up in the dream. You will have a gardener or a soccer player or something, and that energy wants to go in that direction. And so you can align with the characters that live in you, or the states of consciousness that live in you and wants to live through you into the world. And that is what the connection with dreaming consciousness can do.
Is there any way to know if you're kind of you're in delusion about your daydreams, like you're sort of in a loop of sorts, preoccupied with something, and you're daydreaming about, you're fixating on it, as opposed to really what's your soul's trying to communicate?
Yeah, it's a bit of an art, and there's not a super hard science, but you can if you start noticing that you really start looping, that's almost always a signal that something, an internal wound, has clustered to the inner energy, and then the wound really wants to be dealt with. If you have conversations with someone that you had an argument with over and over, that is a wound has entered into it. But you can also have the fantasy of, if I now want to have the fantasy of becoming a basketball player, then if I think I'm going to the NBA, I'm delusional, and so some of these things you need to test in the world, and remain a certain groundedness, because I can go play basketball, and pretty fast I will figure out that that I was never qualified for the NBA.
That you're headed for the NBA, yeah.
That would be crazy.
Yeah.
That would be, but that is you need to test you need to test what you fantasize about, and you have to learn to look into the fantasy, and in an extreme sense, people, for example, use drugs because they want to have an experience. They don't really want heroin, but they want to have a pain-free, blissful state. And so, what they really want is pain-free, blissful. Now, how can I connect to that state of consciousness in myself from time to time? That is, then I can get on a journey to connect with something in me. Or Carl Jung famously said about alcoholism that people try to have a spiritual experience, and they find it in the spirits. So they find the experience on the wrong level. And if you can become spiritual, your desire for drinking becomes less. And so there is somewhat of the art of seeing through through what the fantasy really tries to tell you. Mm-hmm. But that is the way. That's one of the ways your soul communicates: fantasies, intuitions, feelings, and body presences. And because it's your one unique life, there's not a fixed scientific manual that will tell you do this. You
Right.
have to find that connection, relationship, listen how it works in you. Hey, every time I have a great idea, my right shoulder hurts. That's weird, but it happens every time. So now I'm going to trust that, but I don't know it for sure. So I need to test it, but I'm going to give it the faith to do it. So that is how you come to a unique life. And that is how the dreaming consciousness can help during the day and at night. It's full of creativity and wisdom that if you connect to, it just can speed up your journey and keep you a little bit more on track.
I mean, sounds like I love this waking dream methodology that our intuitions and our daydreams are, well, I mean, it's encoded right there in the word. Our daydreams are dreams. But if that's true, do you think that our heavily technological lives are a kind of kryptonite that are not giving us the space to
Yeah,
daydream or
yeah.
just just sit there and do nothing and your mind can go places and listen in a sense?
I love that you reflect on that. I've been thinking about it recently as well, as the beauty of technology and what it can do, and that we have a kind of a love experience with the phone. People have done research. People respond. The brain areas go on for your phone in the same way it goes on for a
Oh
loved
yeah.
one. So and it does pull us away from the pulls us in another world, but not the imaginative daydream world where our soul has space to linger and muse and different. The soul has a different rhythm. It is slower than the speeding up technology world, and so we are disconnected from the certain layers of our soul. And I think we try to connect to them through the technology in just the wrong level from time to time. So there we try to be happy, and we think it's here, but deep
Yeah.
satisfaction comes from being in nature in southern Utah, connected with this plant or your ancestor or the dream or your friends or just being.
Well, I hear through all this a through line of conscious choice. I mean, you have to enter into these spaces out of choice. I mean, maybe it happened more naturally in the old days, but these
Hmm.
days we have to sort of actively create that space. So you talk about a dream ritual, things like incubation. You have these sort
Yeah.
of words and terms. So let's talk about like how do we engage with dreams in a way that you feel is conscious and that can open up some of these benefits.
Yeah, the many people, and you refer to it as well, have had a healing dream or a dream that was really profound. And major scientific breakthroughs and musical pieces and Nobel Prizes and political directions have come to people in dreams. And that can these big dreams, and they can happen. Yet we don't have to wait till the dream comes to us. It's a relationship. And so when we are stuck or we want to have an answer to a certain problem that's relevant to our life, we can go to the dream and ask the dream a question before we go to sleep in order to have a helpful dream response. And that technique is called dream incubation. You're incubating a dream by bringing a problem proactively to the dream before you go to bed. And that is what I describe in that book, that 5-step method. How do you do that? And then get really helpful directions in your life.
Yeah, what are those 5 steps?
I can maybe give you an example. Recently, there
That's
was a
great.
man who came out of a divorce. He was divorced for a year and a half, and felt ready to go dating again. He was dating, didn't flow as well as maybe many of us can relate to in that phase. And he came to me and said, Machiel, I would love to find a partner. Can I ask the dream about that? Of course. Partner is something that really relevant to your life. You can ask anything that's relevant to your life, whether it is how can I live more healthy? How can I grow my business? How can I find a partner? Whatever question that is alive. So he said, I would like that. So that was step one, identifying that there is a question alive in him. Step two is writing down and formulating the right question. So on a bit of reflecting, the man thought, yeah, I do want to figure out how to find a partner. But I think if I figure out what my biggest obstacle is in dating, that I am really actually able to find this partner. Because otherwise, I'm still bouncing against this obstacle, and I feel there is something in me that is problematic. So he said, "Dream, what is my biggest obstacle in dating?" Then step three is do a ritual, and by ritual I mean take some time to really set your intention. It's a sacred intention. You're communicating. Take it as if you're asking this wise counselor that has been living for millions and millions of years, that knows about you, that knows what is good for you, and you're going to ask this being a question. Take some time, show some respect. So this man said, "Okay, I'm going to make a drawing." He drew a heart, put a question mark on it, wrote on the paper to the dream and said, "Dream, it would be such an honor if you would help me, and I would be so grateful, and I would love to learn to be more loving and give my love and become more in the process more loving to other people," which makes the whole setup generous. It's not just, "Hey, give me this," but "Hey, let me become a more loving person." And I'm willing to look at my problem, that my wound or my challenge, in order to get there. So that is step three: do the ritual, and people can make up their own ritual, but just ingredients are spend time on it and treat it with respect. Step four is he went to bed, meditated in bed on the question. It's very helpful. Just lay there for a minute or two, sensing into your question, maybe feel the question being alive in your body, your desire to know the answer. Sleep. And then step five is write down the dream when you wake up. Super important, because dreams have a tendency to evaporate. And
Yeah.
then work on it.
Why do you think dreams evaporate?
That's because our short-term memory goes offline at night. And so your short-term memory is not working very well, and so nothing gets stored. You actually have 2 hours of active dreaming that we completely forget, and it comes back online when you wake up. So one of the best things to do is repeat the dream 2 or 3 times, so this memory formation gets a little denser, and then write it down, because then you will remember.
Have you ever heard of? Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Well,
Finish
and
your thought.
then the final part in that step 5 is work on your dream, and I can tell a little bit more about it. But what was
No,
your?
no. I'll ask you my question in a second. It's a little different. But tell me
Okay.
about working with your dream. That's important.
Yeah. So this man woke up and reported the following dream. He says, "In the dream, I'm driving in a tunnel, and I see a mountain lion. When I'm getting a little closer, I see it's a beautiful tiger. Ooh, I get really scared. I slam on the brakes and drive back." That was his dream. So with these dreams, always be radical. Say the dream on one level responds to my question. I go to this wise counselor, and it answers, and gives me maybe an answer that I don't understand. But let's assume that it's me and not the wise counselor. And a way that I suggest for people to work with dreams that doesn't require a lot of symbol learning and asking the question, what does this mean? Ask the question, what is happening? And so if you ask the question, this man, what is happening? He can say, oh, I am driving in a car. I'm moving through life. I see something. When I get closer, I see something that is beautiful and I'm really scared for. And when I see something that's beautiful and scared for, I slam on the brakes and move out. That's my reflex to that. Now, how does that relate to your dating life? And he was pretty quickly seeing the parallels in that dynamic. Like, oh yeah, no, I know. If a person is really beautiful, I have a hard time approaching. If we get close and it becomes vulnerable, I'm out. And now this person can work on that. And you can use the dream also to ask a follow-up question. How can I deal with this anxiety? But at least first step one is, hey, you now know where you are. You know the pattern that you do. That's your biggest obstacle in dating. And it's in a nutshell the 5 steps. Identify that there's a question alive. Sounds really simple, but there's many questions alive that we either push away, or that we don't want to look at, or that we don't ask help for. Then formulate a good question. So one question at a time, open-ended question. Um, 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 yeah, a well-phrased question about what you really want to know. And in the book, I help people to really get to solidify that, because the whole process hinges on asking the right question. And then step 3, do a ritual. And a ritual is also some form of how you grind this reality and open it up to the dreaming consciousness. Because in a good ritual, when you do a ritual at night in the desert with the fire, and you sit there with friends, and you spend some time, you notice, hey, I'm open. I'm in touch with something larger than me. I can feel it. I can feel its presence. That is what a ritual does. And good rituals do that, and then that energy, the wisdom, the intelligence can start flowing in, and it communicates to the other world. I'm open. I'm in a frequency. You can reach me. I really want this. I will be honored. Step 4, you sleep. Step 5, write down the dream and work with it. Different ways to work with it, but work with it. Also, if you don't understand it right away, you might have already thought on your problem for a long time. Your dream gives an answer, and it comes from a different angle than you thought of, and that is very possible because it's new. You didn't think of it that way, so puzzle with it. Sometimes 3 hours, 6 hours later, read it again. Read it to a friend. Uh, do something little. Maybe just make a drawing that lets the dreaming conscious know, hey, I'm I'm listening. I don't get it yet completely, but I'm listening. And then maybe you have a fantasy during the day, a synchronistic event. You open the book in the right place. The license plate says something that you like, oh my gosh. It might come from different angles, but this consciousness start conspiring in favor of you to help you get to it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a part I really emphasize, because I see that people sometimes think, oh, I don't get this. Oh, don't worry. It is the answer. Just work on it. Let it simmer. So those are the 5 steps. And people can apply that one time in their life. They can build a relationship with dreaming consciousness. I encourage people they've listened to it today, ask a question, or ask a simple question as, what is one thing I can do to be more loving to myself? It's a generous, good question for yourself. And research shows really high results in that. They've done research in Harvard that shows that those type of questions work very well.
I mean, it really feels like an art, as you mentioned, which I suppose on the face of it makes a lot of sense. But of course, a part of me questions that, and I wonder, like, why is that? Like, if our own selves want to communicate with us, why doesn't it just be a bit more literal at times? Or like, it feels like this is a game in a sense. And sometimes just for fun, I'm like, well, why?
Yeah. Well, sometimes it is literal. Sometimes it is pretty clear. But it is almost like a picture says more than 1,000 words, and a three-dimensional reality says more than a picture. There's a lot of nuance packed into the experience of a dream, and the deeper self, its more primal nature, is to communicate in metaphors, because metaphors seem more are more vague, but at the same time are far more precise. So that's why it comes sometimes in that way. And your own psyche has a symbol formatting quality, where it won't say you have a critical thought, but a critical thought will in the three-dimensional world be represented by maybe your ex partner, or or a boss, or someone that you consider critical, and then it takes on the form and shape of that person. So that is just the way it manifests itself. And so that's one a bit about why it takes on this form. Another part is there's free will. And what I've really learned over the years doing this technique and this method is that it's not so much interested in either really telling you what to do. So it's as if you're created in a way that you have complete free will what you do, and this phenomenon is okay with any direction that you do. It's completely unconditional loving. Even if you decide to do really horrible things on in our level, it lets you, it loves you, and it lets you do these things. There are consequences, and so you have to work through the consequences, the karma of doing these things. But this phenomenon allows for free will, and so it's not going to say, "Hey, you must do this."
Yeah,
It's
you're
flowing.
summing up like maybe what's going on in the world, right? It's like we're allowed to choose, and the scales always rebalance. So
Yeah,
it's been many thousands, millions of years of this, and here we are. Like this is the great rebalancing. You know, it's like, hey, the water has to start flowing. It just does what it does. You know, you're allowed to choose, and you're lovingly given sorts of inputs and considerations and help. But it's this great art piece of choice.
yeah, 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 and 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 it is on standby. I once had a dream in which I said, dreaming, what do you want people to know about this method of dream incubation, asking you questions for help?
It's very meta. Yeah.
And the dream I had was, I was at a company, and there was a CEO, it was a female CEO who was unbelievably wise and deeply compassionate. And this female CEO would let you figure it out on your own, and even if it would take 2 or 3 years, and would be totally fine with that, or would be delighted to educate and help you on your journey, and would be equally delighted. And I thought, that makes sense for this notion of somewhat in the same vein as we just talked about. There's total free will. It's deeply compassionate, and it allows for choice. And yet, if you want, you can tap into this wisdom for support that has to do with your life path. It's not going to create it's not going to give you all the answers. So, I've seen people that are like, which school should I go? And then, I didn't get a good dream. And I was like, did you do any research before you asked this question? No. Yeah. Well, it's also this female CEO is also a phenomenal coach. So it lets you figure it out as far as you can, and when you're then really stuck, then it is there to support. But it's
It's
not like,
participatory. Like it
yeah,
requires your engagement as opposed to being passive.
beautiful set, right?
Yeah. What into like this world, do you think that people can sort of do this sort of work with dreams on their own? Of course they can, but do you think it's more effective if they almost have like a dream coach or they have someone that can help them work and interpret their dreams?
Yes, if there's a good coach, it's helpful. But I've seen that if people apply, like how I try to write the book, is that anyone with never dreamt or enjoys working with their dreams can apply this technique themselves. And these first and yes, if you have someone that you can in the morning share your dreams with, whether it's even your partner, your family, a friend, they might have a different angle, give you feedback. Uh, Famously, Carl Jung, the great Western dream doctor, shared his dreams with his gardener, who wasn't really known to be a great psychologist, but he felt this gardener always had some angle or said something, so he was just bouncing it off.
Yeah, I
So
love that.
yeah, that helps.
Yeah. Speaking of this is a crazy idea, but like the collective dream
Hmm.
and the way like the world, all of humanity is unconscious. What if there was a technological approach to this where there's some app using AI tech where you maybe just speak your dreams to make it real easy. It logs it all in. It's getting millions of people's dreams and it tries to interpret them to say, hey, we're finding a commonality. Almost like if it can see like there's a collective message from humanity or, the great dream or even prophecy. It's
Yeah.
a wild idea, but I think it was
Well,
one way of like turning technology on its head, you know?
yeah, yeah. No, what you would potentially get out of it is this larger story that is unfolding.
Yeah.
And actually, that what Joseph Campbell said: dreams are personal myths, and myths are collective dreams. So our mythology is this larger storyline, and there are currently several mythologies unfolding, who are the threads of the large soul creating something. And
Threads? You said threads, right? Or
yeah,
threats?
with a D, threads.
Threads. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, that's so beautiful. And we started this. You were talking about how you just had awakened from a lucid dream today, and I just want to touch on that because it's a very like flashy subject, but also fascinating. Like, what is that all about, and why are we rarely but occasionally able to enter into lucid dreams? What do you think that's all about? And how, everyone wants to know how they can maybe do that
yeah,
because
yeah,
it
yeah. No,
sounds wonderful.
it's such a. You've had lucid dreams.
I've had like a handful,
Yeah.
and there was one that was the most profound where it lasted for, I don't know, let's say it was 5 to 30 minutes. It's probably not that long before I quote unquote fell back into the dream.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't like I was in the space. I was like, okay, I'm going to play music with Bob Marley. And poof, I'm in that space. It was just
Yeah.
like I was in the space I was in. And yet I was aware I was dreaming. I could sort of, wow, just that in itself. And it was profound. It was a profound, exciting feeling
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
sort
Yeah.
of like it's like I see behind the curtain in a way. It is like,
Mm-hmm.
and that felt really exciting. And I also want to ask you about something called galantamine, and because it relates to drug and herb I
Yeah.
once heard about to help with lucid dreaming, and it did for me once, but that was a wild experience.
So lucid dreaming is a dream in which you know that you're dreaming. Just for if people don't know what a lucid dream is, so that in the dream you go like, oh my gosh, this is a dream. And what you also point at is that you're there, and that you then, and that's where I started also saying a lucid dream is a world. You really realize that you're in a world that is unbelievably real, that is so real that you normally don't even question whether it's a dream. You just treat it as if it's a real world, and you're just in an other world having an experience. And once you know that you're there, you can experimenting in that reality, or interacting in that reality, because you can yell out, is there anyone with a message for me? I want to see something that is important to me. Or I had a while ago, I requested, I would like to experience unconditional love. And then I was zapped in a state of unconditional love for a
You're
minute.
asking good questions. Yeah, I was trying to play music with Bob Marley. So
Well,
kidding.
that's
Hey, but you're asking very great questions. That's a great. Yeah, it's like I should have asked for a million lucid dreams or something like that, or infinite wishes. I was like, damn it.
well, but that it's just like in the dream incubation, it hinges on asking the great question. This
Right.
also, but having how fun is it to play music with Bob Marley? But that in itself is a great lucid dream. But so you can do these experiments once you're there, and you can tap into the same kind of wisdom that is in that dream reality that we try to do with that dream incubation. Only you're already there, so it manifests right away. When I said, "Is there anyone with a message for me?" I had this character that was coming in the form of my youth idol Johan Cruyff, a soccer player, and came flying to me and said, "Come with me. I'm going to show you something." So we are flying together, and from the sky we can see a two roads they're crossing. And he says, "I'm going to teach you how to cross a crossing." And I'm a little bit baffled, and I think I had imagined some bigger revelation. But he says, "You have to walk on a certain moment. You have to go, and when the cars are coming, don't run back. Don't get scared. Scared. You stop. You wait till the car is by, and then you walk further, and you must walk further." And I woke up from it. I wrote it down, and I was a little bit. I didn't immediately get it, and then I thought, "Oh my gosh, I'm on a crossroad in my life. Shall I jump to private practice?" And yes, I'm somewhat scared. Will there be enough people? Will I have enough money? How quickly will they come? Will it be successful? And it just said, "Go, and when you get scared, stop, but don't run back. Don't go back to a clinic. Wait till it's over, and then you continue to walk. Make the steps." And that I continue to have that in my mind when I was like, "Oh, I only have 6 clients, and what will it be?" And these moments of fear, and then I was able to cross the road, and at the other side, you think, that was doable. But it was actually really the dream. I couldn't ask for a better suggestion at that moment in my life, and that is possible in that lucid dream state, and that will happen by just asking, "Is there anyone with a message for me?" That the same can help. That if you don't get lucid, you can do dream incubation, and you can ask exactly the same question. So those are things that are possible, and beyond that, you can start seeing how this dream world is created, and how it is built up, and then you start seeing how expectation and intent and belief systems create the world you perceive, and how those phenomena apply to this reality as well. And then you get in very advanced stages of Tibetan dream yoga, where you start
Yeah.
exploring the nature of reality.
Yeah, I was thinking about the Tibetans and their relationship to dreams. I mean, more often than not with lucid dreams, I have the even more psychedelic experience where in the dream I wake up, and then later on, of course, I actually wake up again. And the whole
Ah,
time, I mean, that happens to me more often, and it's
oh yeah,
so bizarre. But I fully think, oh my God, I was just in this dream. That
yeah.
thing that's happening, that's not happening. Oh, I'm so relieved. I was in a dream. And then I go in on with another dream. And later on, I wake up into this dream. And then I just keep thinking, like, Jesus, where does this end? Like, you know?
Yes. Well, that is called a false awakening, and how you could work with it is every time you wake up, you do a little test. Am I still dreaming? And so you could, for example, try. Can I push my finger through my hand? And you really try it, so you don't think this is not a dream. You really are open. Can I push my finger through my hand? No. Okay, this is waking life, or I call it dense reality. This dense reality. But then the moments, if you make this a practice, you will also do it in your dream. And then you push your finger through and you go like, oh my gosh, I'm in a dream. This is awesome. And then you have your question ready that you want to experience. And maybe you want to say, I want to hear the most beautiful music I can hear. Whatever is great that you want to experience. But that way, test, and you'll get lucid.
Yeah. It's wild stuff. I mean, it's a deep well for humanity's been working with this for a long time. I don't think it's a technology that we look, maybe we look at it now as primitive. But as you referenced the Tibetans, like, it's an internal landscape that it's just adding to the richness and depth of that inquiry.
Yeah.
And there's a lot there for us, especially at a time when I think we're looking for answers. And as you said, we're awash in so much information that perhaps is obfuscating that from our waking consciousness. And we have to enter into this space a bit consciously, a lot consciously, to create that invitation so that we can hear and we can open up really what is natural and our own birthright.
Beautifully said. And when we open up, the other side will come in and start supporting us. And it doesn't mean we have a trouble-free life or a life without suffering, but we get connected to a sense of purpose. We start delivering our gifts to community. There's meaning. Life becomes a big adventure. And that makes life very much worth living and very colorful. And the sense that you're not alone, but that you're supported by something larger than yourself also changed for me radically the way I am in the world.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Machiel. His Dream Guidance is your book, and we'll put the link in the show notes. Is there anything else folks should know about you or how to connect, or anything else you want to add to this subject for now?
I would love for people to test and try it for themselves. It works best if you have your own experience. You sleep anyway tonight, so it takes some time. And the other thing, out of a nighttime dream, I founded the company, the Jung Platform, Jung Platform. And there we have over 150 programs on shadow work, finding your myth, synchronicity, introduction to Jungian tarot work, alchemy. And that's really for the beginner and the intermediate person to start deepening themselves through a soul-oriented psychology.
Dig it. I'll have to check that out. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk today. It's nice to meet you.
It was a pleasure. I love your energy and your curiosity.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Klerk, so much for coming on. I've been actually working with this technique of sort of asking a question, in essence, of my dreams before I go to bed, and it works. Like, the dream then, it's like casting a stone of intention. Essentially, I absolutely then have a dream, and it feels like a response, and it's actually a little profound. So, in the sense that what I'm, in essence, being told by my dreams had way more meaning, to the point that it really kind of was, I don't know, I was pretty blown away. So I suggest give it a try. If you want to go really learn the technique, get his book. In the show notes there's a link, and see what you can glean out of it. I'm sure there'll be many things. This song that you're hearing some of in the background is called Assured, and it is one of the 4 tracks from the Headwaters album that is currently on the Calm app. So if you want to hear it, head over there, or head over to the Patreon, patreon.com/eastforest. It's currently over there too. It's a beautiful record, and in the future I'll tell you more about how it was made. It was a really cool experience and quite a moment in time. Yeah. Wish me luck, wish me good fortune. I like that phrase better, but I feel like I've got a lot coming up, and I need some assuagement of my anxieties that I'm feeling right now. It has a lot of things on the plate. I'm gonna head down to Boulder, Utah, God willing, next week, and work from down there for a couple weeks. It's my favorite time of the year down there in the fall. and then head up back here for a few weeks before tour and complete the rehearsals here. But until then, my friends, you keep walking that walk. Don't take any shit. But if you do it with grace.